In today's Leeds news, uncertainty around Bornauw's future, Van Persie's Ueda comments, Leeds Premier League survival, Farke won't take the foot off the gas, and rumour mill stories on Kofi and Amoako. Hey folks, welcome to Leeds View for Tuesday the 5th of May with your Leeds United news. Jer here. There's a bit of stuff to get stuck into today. It's a bit quieter on the ground. Leeds not playing until Monday night next week, so it's going to get a bit thin on the ground over the next couple of days. But we are getting to that point of the season where little bits of information are starting to eke out from different sources around Europe. So we're very much getting close to transfer season, and you're starting to see an awful lot of managerial comments and more high-profile outlets linking Leeds United with players this summer, or at least commenting on the ones that have already been linked. You can check out the podcast also. Last night, myself and Paul Brooker had a little bit of a look back at the weekend and look to next weekend to see where Leeds are, and just a little bit of talk about the sliding door moment of the season, which we touched on yesterday in the news, around what has been a remarkable second half of the season for Leeds United. So you can check all that out if you want to. I will link it at the end of today's video as well. Outside of that, we'll get stuck into today's Leeds news, and we'll start off with Sebastian Bornauw's Leeds United future. Sebastian Bornauw's first season at Leeds United probably hasn't lined up exactly with his own expectations, and that's not to say that he's had a bad season. In fact, when he has played, I don't think he's been that bad at all for Leeds United. I think the term serviceable comes to mind when you think of the centre half. When he has played for Leeds, he's been pretty solid in games. He hasn't made any major errors or any major slip-ups, but he has struggled just a little bit with a couple of injuries over the course of this year. But when he has played, he hasn't looked out of place in the Leeds United side. But the problem is, he hasn't played that much. When he came to Leeds United, he had one eye on potentially getting in to the Belgian World Cup squad heading into this summer. That doesn't look like it's going to be the case now, given the amount of games that he's played. He's started just 4 Premier League games for Leeds United this season. He's only been involved in 9 games in the Premier League overall, and he's averaged just 35 minutes of Premier League football this season. And at 27 years of age, he is coming into his peak years of his footballing career. There's naturally going to be speculation around what his future looks like, and that's already kicked off. There was rumour back in January that there were clubs in Germany potentially interested in looking at him. Then he decided to stay with Leeds until the end of the season. But it's not straightforward if he does want to walk away from the club. But there's a report coming out from Kicker in Germany today, and they claim that one of his former clubs are interested in bringing him back this summer, and that's FC Cologne. They're looking to add experience to the defence next season. He had a very good time when he did play for them the last time, but despite his low volume of minutes this season, Kicker don't see a cheap bargain signing for FC Cologne, and they think that Leeds United will still look for a significant transfer fee if he is to go. And the Leeds only paid £5 million for Sebastian Bornauw. His contract at the club runs until 2029, so Leeds don't have to necessarily be in a rush to let him go, but if they could recoup at a minimum the £5 million that they spent on him last summer, then maybe they will be in a position to let him go. There is another possibility that's lined out by Kicker that I just don't like the look of, and that's a loan with an obligation to buy come the end of next season. And loans haven't worked out particularly well for Leeds over the last couple of years, so if Leeds could avoid that one, you would imagine they'd want to do it. And also, if he is going to move on, Leeds would probably want the money now to try and reinvest it in positions elsewhere on the park. The big one is the fact that Danilo Doki is the one that's been linked with Leeds United as a free transfer from Union Berlin. He's a right-sided centre-back, plays in the same role and position as Sebastian Bornauw. So if they can offload Sebastian Bornauw for the £5 million, put that money towards wages for Danilo Doki, that kind of offsets some of that at the very least. But it does look like going into the summer, we might be seeing an exit for Sebastian Bornauw if, and it is an if, his valuation is met by another club. Right, let's move on. So Ayase Ueda continues to be linked to Leeds United and a potential move to the club this summer, but there's plenty of other interested clubs in Ayase Ueda. Everton are named as the primary side that are interested in him in the Premier League, but Leeds United continue to be linked with him, and he's had a very strong season, and the speculation around his future has been increased by his own manager's comments when Robin van Persie couldn't confirm that he would be at the club next season. He's got 26 goals so far this season. He's been a very important player for Feyenoord, but he's not going to be a cheap option if Leeds do decide to bring him in. But it does look like he is going to move away from the club this summer. Speaking with news outlet 1908, Robin van Persie had the following to say about Ayase Ueda. From my point of view, I hope he is with us next season. He is extremely important to us and our style of play, but from his point of view, it might be a good time to make a move. But that's not up to me. I have no idea if keeping him is realistic, but as I say, I hope he stays. We all know that one of the positions Leeds United are consistently being mentioned with moving for is a striker. This summer, Joe Piero is expected to move away from the club. Leeds might want more competition than just Lucas Meche. There's a couple of different profiles of strikers that Leeds United are believed to be looking at. There is still the 6 foot plus target man option, as well as a secondary different profile of striker that Ayase Ueda would definitely take a box in. Troy Parrott falls into that bracket as well. So if Leeds were to make a move for him, if Leeds were to get him, he would add a different attacking element to Leeds United next season. It's not a guarantee that they will move for him. That's not a guarantee they will get him. The price won't be cheap, as I say. It's likely to be in around the £30 million mark. So Leeds will be heading into record transfer territory if they were going to bring him in. Not quite fully record transfer territory, but in and around that one. Anyway, let's move on. So Leeds could be guaranteed another season in the Premier League this weekend if West Ham don't beat Arsenal. It's that simple. Arsenal now know going into the weekend that they could have one hand on the Premier League title if they were to beat West Ham after Manchester City's slip up last night against Everton. There are a few other ways Leeds could guarantee their safety this weekend, and Isaac Johnson and Leeds Live has been laying them all out for us to have a little bit of a look and digest. As I say, if West Ham don't beat Arsenal, then they will be 7 points behind Leeds United with just 6 points available from their remaining fixtures, meaning it'd be mathematically impossible for them to catch Leeds United, guaranteeing us our safety. And that's the first way Leeds can guarantee their safety this weekend. The second is Leeds will need to get a draw if West Ham get a draw against Arsenal. All Leeds need to do is match the West Ham result, and they'll still be mathematically safe come the end of the weekend. The other version of this is a simple one. Go and beat Spurs on Monday night. Doesn't matter what anybody else does. It's out of there. It's out of everyone else's hands if Leeds can go and do that. Spurs are on a very strong run, and it does look like West Ham United are very much back in a relegation fight, given the turnaround of Spurs and West Ham's recent form just slipping a little bit. De Zerbi's getting the results people thought that he would get when he came into the club. But going into this weekend, as I say, Leeds could be safe without ever kicking a football, and that would be great. It means Leeds could relax and enjoy and play with a bit of freedom for the remaining 3 games of this season. But that doesn't mean that Daniel Farke is going to start handing out gifts, as he likes to word them, for players that have been on the fringes this season. And that's the next talking point to get stuck into. Daniel Farke has insisted that Leeds will not ease off the gas, even if they are mathematically safe come the end of this weekend. And as we mentioned last week, every position Leeds finish higher is a guaranteed £3 million extra for the club. So it will be important. And Daniel Farke wants to pick up every single available point between now and the end of the season and give the fans something to celebrate come the end of the year. And he won't be dishing out gifts and favours, as he likes to word it. And speaking on this, he said the following: "The main subject is to stay in the league, and if we do this and are really able to celebrate, this must be a major achievement. We won't be playing in Europe next season, that's for sure. Of course, I would rather finish in position 11 than in position 12, or rather 12 than 13th. But we're also professional football players, and we fight for every point. And even if I wasn't a professional, even in the garden with my mates, I was fighting for every win because I hate to lose. So for that, even if we should be mathematically safe before the last game day, then we would fight for each other's points." He finished off by saying that Leeds want to give the fans something to celebrate come the last day of the season. That trip down to the London Stadium against West Ham, where their future could very much be on the line going into that game. Leeds should be all done and dusted by that stage, so it will be an interesting one to keep an eye on. But he does, the Oasis fans have been fantastic this year. The Ellen Road support this year has been absolutely amazing, so it'd be nice to give everyone a bright send-off come the end of the year, and looking up the table rather than down the table, seeing where Leeds will finish come the end of the season. Let's move on. We'll get into some rumour mill territory now, and as always, take all of this with a pinch of salt, and we'll see if it ends up being real in the summer. And we'll start off, well, the only one to talk about today is Kofi Amoako. According to Bild in Germany, they claim that Leeds United are interested in Dynamo Dresden's 20-year-old midfielder, Kofi Amoako. The young German midfielder has played 27 games this season for Dresden at the very young age of just 20. And Dresden are sitting mid-table in Bundesliga 2. And Leeds have had a decent record in shopping in Bundesliga 2. Autanaka came in for bargain price from the Bundesliga 2 as well. So it's not been a bad hunting ground for Leeds United. But Bild claimed that Leeds could get Amoako for as little as £1.7 million. But it's not necessarily going to be the fee that Leeds will end up paying. As is mentioned in Bild, Dresden will be very aware that if a Premier League club is interested in one of your players, you can add on a little bit of a tax and try and inflate the valuation of the player. And that is likely to happen, with Dresden saying they would likely want double that £1.7 million price tag, which is still an incredibly affordable price tag. So if Leeds were to make a move for him, they would have to deal with that Premier League tax But at a very young age, he seems like a very capable young midfielder. But he would definitely be one, if Leeds were looking to bring him in, that would be one for the future and not for right now. Whether Leeds want to spend any money on future prospects of the club at this point, rather than investing it all in the senior side and players that will go into that starting 11 right now, remains to be seen. But he's another midfielder being mentioned. We've seen left backs, strikers, goalkeepers, left midfielders, and defensive midfielders all linked with Leeds United this summer. So it's a wide spectrum of players that have been linked with Leeds already. But we'll add them to the list. We'll start digesting this list once the season is done and dusted. We know where we are. And we'll start lining them all out, see if we can see a pattern, and then see who's genuinely realistic. And whatever Leeds move for, we'll have a benchmark to go back and go, they said this, who's right and who's wrong. As I say, you can check out the podcast from last night. Myself and Paul Brooker having a bit of a look back at the weekend's action ahead to next weekend and the turnaround point of the season for Leeds United that needs to be looked at and needs to be built upon for next season. You can subscribe to the channel if you want to help support us, like the video, or you can check out OK Jersey on okjersey.com for 8% off World Cup shirts for World Cup summer using the code TView in your checkout. Folks, have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you later. See ya.